There was a lot of horrible things in 1999 that went down. I'm just going to give a shout out to how terrible nu metal music is.
Hello, I am Rosie Knight in the Den of Geek suite at New York Comic Con with some of the incredible minds behind VHS 99. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
My name is Josh Goldbloom. I'm a producer.
I'm Joseph Winter. I am a writer-director of To Hell and Back.
I'm Vanessa Winter, and I am the co-writer, co-director of To Hell and Back.
I'm a co-writer, co-director of To Hell and Back.
Tyler MacIntyre, director and co-writer of The Gawkers.
Wonderful. So first of all, I'm such a huge fan of the VHS franchise, so I'm just like so stoked to be here with you guys, and I just thought this movie was such a brilliant addition. So Josh, could you speak a little bit to VHS 99 and the kind of nostalgia and Y2K fear?
I come as a fan too, right? Like I came in on VHS 94 and here we are in VHS 99. But I think mostly for us, it was just, we had so much fun making 94 that we wanted to stay in the same decade. And there were a lot of things that we weren't able to achieve in 94 that we thought we might be able to achieve in 99. 99 just happened to be the year that Blair Witch exploded, and so did found footage cinema. There was a lot of horrible things in 1999 that went down. I feel like I keep saying this all day, but I'm just going to give a shout out to how terrible nu metal music is. And then Y2K and, you know, fear of the future, and obviously like it being the end of the decade, it felt like something. It felt like an era of time that we were all very engaged in, lived through, and yeah, it was a no-brainer. 99 was probably the first year that when we sat down to discuss moving into other years, 99 was definitely came out right away.
And when it came to being approached and kind of coming up with your idea, you know, getting to take VHS to hell, finally, could you speak a little bit to that? And it's so much fun to have the 2000 setting and everything, New Year's Eve party. So could you speak a little bit about the origin of your story?
Oh man, we were just so honored. Even now thinking about it, I just feel so honored. Joseph kind of threw it out first, and I was like, let's do it.
The hell thing came from the fact that we were going to shoot ours in Utah. They were already in production on some of the other ones in LA. And so we were trying to think of what can we do in Utah that could maybe utilize the budget the most. Like, what does it have that's unique? And it's landscapes. And so we started thinking like what story would be conducive to that, and hell came out. And then also we weren't asked to be the Y2K segment, but Vanessa's been obsessed with Y2K for some reason ever since I've met her.
No, it's really interesting, especially if you lived through it and then you look back and you're like, well, there's actually a truth to it, but also it's like didn't happen. It's intriguing.
Yeah, so it was kind of a no-brainer to pitch that as part of the deal, and they let us do it. Going
to hell, it was just like one of those moments where it was pitched to us and it was like, well, I mean, we might as well jump the shark, right? Like, it's like, yeah, I mean, there was a conversation behind the scenes. It's like, I don't think anybody believes these movies are real anymore. Or maybe they do. It's like, I don't know. It's 2022. People believe in the weirdest stuff. Yeah, I mean, that was just such an exciting idea for us, was to take it to hell. And, you know, there was a moment where we were like, should we really? That's crazy. And then we were just like, we ran with it.
No, I love it. And I think like that idea of blurring that reality and fantasy, actually like kids these days, they love like creepypastas, they love like YouTube horror, and I think in that way VHS can really take on those kind of fears and the urban legends of what would happen if, you know, and that's kind of the power of the movies.
I mean, if Jason and Bill and Ted can go to hell, so can we, right?
Exactly, next to space.
Yeah. Oh, trust me.
Jason X.
Please invite us to that one.
Yes.
Tyler, I feel like your story, it felt so in the tradition of certain stories that we've seen within VHS, but it had like this really unique twist. So could you talk a little bit about Gawkers and kind of the origin of it and how it we're allowed to do spoilers, how it kind of bleeds into the films?
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, when Josh kind of approached me about it, we started talking about like, well, it's set in 1999, and, you know, obviously that comes with certain themes to it, like, you know, like the kind of alienation, and like I definitely associate that with like kind of like the junior high experience. And so I wanted to kind of reflect a bit of that kind of, because I think being a teenager then and being a teenager now is kind of a little bit different. You know, like the internet was just getting going, and there's a lot of things that were happening at that time with like reality TV and like, you know, like new like digital technology was just starting to creep in. And there was a lot, especially around that time, there was a lot of like kind of creepy things in media being presented to us as no, that's normal. You know, like as in, you know, like American Pie was a big inspiration for us. Like and you kind of like some of those things you watched at the time and were kind of like, it's a little weirdly disturbing, and then now you watch it and you're like, that's flat out criminal, you know. And so I wanted to kind of, it seemed kind of ripe for like a horror kind of take to it. Also knowing that like ours, as like after we kind of wrote it, we got approached about, well, can you kind of make it sort of a wraparound kind of thing, and kind of trying to parcel that out and figure out how to do it in a way that wouldn't set up the whole thing to kind of flow and make sense kind of in the context of everything else, was a bit of a challenge. But ultimately we were just going for like you know, authenticity, and kind of, you know, we wanted these kids to really feel like friends. And you know, you mentioned like creepypasta and like, you know, teenagers these days, and I think kids back then were a little scarier, but for kind of different reasons.
Yeah.
We just wanted to kind of have fun with that.
Yeah.
We just wanted to kill those teenagers. Yeah.
We for
You
sure
gotta
wanted
make them killable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there's a bit of like a style thing in the you know, like there's some, you know, like it's drawn some comparisons to like, you know, like Amateur Night and some of the first like VHS ones in terms of just like, you know, there's lighter version of that, you know, but still kind of, you know, similar like shitty male behavior kind of being taken to task in a way that kind of makes sense thematically and kind of fits the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Amateur Night. I love that cathartic aspect of it, where it's, if you're going to have some kids being ripped apart on a bed in a gory fashion, you need to not be like, oh no, I wish that didn't happen. It's not that kind of movie. It's meant to be fun. And you really achieved that with that one. Josh, how did it feel? I mean, like VHS 94, you know, you touched on it. It was just so massive when it came out, and it really just brought to life some of my Timo Tahanto is like my favorite director of all time, so I was just like,
just one of my favorite
just
dudes
the
of
best,
all time.
right? So like, how did it feel to come back to this iconic franchise and then just absolutely like blow it up into the stratosphere in terms of how many people were watching?
Look, I think it was a surprise to all of us. When you make a movie, I think any filmmaker can attest to this too. It's you're just so absolutely close to it. You rarely find the time to step back and think about whether or not the audience is going to appreciate it or the reviews that are going to come in. And so I spent many sleepless nights along with many filmmakers and many crew members, you know, we shot VHS 94 during a pandemic. We bubbled in a hotel in Toronto. We built most of our like sets like in that hotel. Like it was just a nightmare of an experience. But the beauty of VHS is how collaborative it is, and you know, you're doing it with friends and they become family. And so, God, I went off on a tangent. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, look, it's so wonderful because again, I'm such a huge fan of the franchise. You know, I used to run a festival back in the day, and I remember like trying to negotiate a price with like Magnolia to screen VHS 2, and they took me for it. I had to pay like $900 for like a screening or something. It was nuts. And now I get to be in like, you know, wearing the producer's shoes. So yeah, look, we're all really, really connected and close, and we're just trying to make movies that we love, and hopefully like the fun that we have making the movies is the fun that the audience has watching those films, because we're all that audience. We love horror movies just as much as the people who watch our movies do.
Yeah, I mean, what was it like for you guys as creators to put your all into making this? The Ghost to Hell is just so much fun, and there's so much brilliant practical in there. What was it like for you to put your all into making a movie and then get to see it be part of a movie as a larger whole with some just unbelievable talent, like that collaboration? What does it feel like to be a part of that?
It's kind of weird. Like I like the night before the premiere, I was accidentally nerding out about VHS and ranking all of my favorite segments again because I was looking it up and seeing everybody else's rankings, and I'm like, oh, what is my final ranking? And then all of a sudden I wake up and I'm like, oh, but I'm also a part of it, and it's just been really fun.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I mean, it's a great, you know, legacy. Like, you know, like that movie, the first one, like hit Sundance, like right when I was finishing film school. And then like seeing all those directors like go on to do like such great things, and all the people, you know, like every, you know, it's like, I mean, the list is endless. You know, you got Timo and, you know, Bruckner and like, you know, like all these like, you know, great people. But a lot of the people have kind of stayed in the family, you know, like you can, you know, if you encounter a problem, all of a sudden you're on a Zoom with radio silence, and then they're like, here's how we're going to fix the movie. And, you know, like, or whatever. And it's, you know, it is great because everyone's such a, you know, directing, even though it's like a collaborative thing, it's often a relatively solitary thing because a lot of it kind of falls on your shoulders. It's very personal. Whereas here, you're kind of like part of a band, and you get to even though there's not a lot of, you kind of operate on your own during production. By the time you're actually like screening the movie and doing interviews, you kind of get to meet all the wonderful people who made the other segments, and you kind of become like kind of defensive about the whole thing. You're like, you said what about Suicide Bit? And it's just like, and you really kind of like learn to you kind of learn to love it in a very different way than you kind of a movie that you've done just solely yourself.